Hi guys, last video for the week, and we want to take a look at using a midpoint formula. And a lot of times we're working in the coordinate plane with the midpoint formula. So you remember this, you guys learned how to graph in the coordinate plane in the junior high, and then you did a lot of it in Algebra 1. So we have our horizontal axis, which is our x-axis, our vertical axis, which is our y-axis, the origin, okay, which would have coordinates 0, 0, okay, and then we start in the upper right-hand corner, and we call that quadrant 1, okay, and then we work counterclockwise. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, and notice when they name the quadrants, they use Roman numerals. I really don't know why, that's just the way it's done, okay, so upper right-hand corner and then counterclockwise. Okay, so we know up here, our x and y coordinates, you would always have a positive x coordinate and a positive y coordinate. And then if you come over here, well, that would be on the negative side of the x-axis, so that would be a negative x coordinate, but you're still working on the positive y-axis, so that would be a positive y coordinate. And then you're down here in quadrant 3, and that would be a negative x coordinate and a negative y coordinate, so both coordinates would be negative there. And then here in quadrant 4, you'd be on the positive side of the x-axis, so your x coordinate would be positive, but you'd be down on the negative side of the y-axis. Okay, so you would have a positive x and a negative y. Okay, so just, I know you guys have seen this all before, okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. It'll come up. We work in the coordinate system on a regular basis once we get going. Okay, so this midpoint formula, okay, so here's what we're saying. Let's suppose we have a segment AB, and M is the midpoint, okay, so remember we were talking last week in class towards the end, and so I have segment AB, and segment M is right in the middle. That's your midpoint. So if M is the midpoint, it takes AB and it splits it up into two congruent segments. So we know that AM and MB, okay, would have the exact same measurement. So we could say the length of AM equals the length of MB. Okay, and then they use this, you see this a lot in the textbooks. I don't really like it, but I really can't think of a better way to do it. These little numbers are called subscripts. See how they're not up above like an exponent? So that doesn't mean x to the first and y to the first. And that doesn't mean x to the second and y to the second. See how they're down below? These are called subscripts. Okay, so this little 1 right here and this little 1, they're called subscripts. And we read that as x sub 1 and y sub 1. And then we'd read this as x sub 2 and y sub 2. And basically what they do is they use it designates this is an x coordinate here of point A, and that's an x coordinate there of point B, but they don't want them to be the same thing, so they can't just put x and x. So they have to differentiate between the two, and they use subscripts. So that would be x sub 1 is the x coordinate A, and x sub 2 is the x coordinate B, and they're not the exact same number. And the same thing with y sub 1 and y sub 2. Y sub 1 and y sub 2 are different numbers, so they differentiate between the two using a subscript. So what we're saying is that the coordinates of point A at one end are x sub 1 and y sub 1. And the coordinates at the other end point B, are x sub 2, y sub 2. And so when you want to find the coordinates of the midpoint, you have to add and divide by 2. Okay, that's what's going on right here. Okay, so if I add the two x coordinates and divide by 2, so x sub 1 plus x sub 2 divided by 2, and then I add the two y coordinates together and divide by 2, so that'd be y sub 1 plus y sub 2 divided by 2. So when you add two numbers together and then divide by 2, that's an average of two numbers. That's how you find an average, okay? Like for instance, you know, let's suppose you had 2 test grades, okay? And let's suppose one test grade was a an 84%, okay, and the other guy was, say, a 90%, and you wanted to find your